Hello and welcome to this demonstration by EntityStream. Today we're going to show you how we use EntityStream to identify identity data locked within files that are stored within your organization. So the first thing we need to do after logging into EntityStream is we need to define where the files we're interested in our company are actually stored. And we do this by setting up what we call monitors. Now, monitors can be file system type monitors. They can be SharePoint monitors for intranet-based files. It can be Exchange servers, so Outlook 365 or an internal Exchange server, and we can be configuring it to collect contacts or the attachments attached to emails from within those servers. Or we could be collecting information from files stored on Dropbox or Google Drive, or in the future, OneDrive from Microsoft. This agent has been set up as a file system monitor, and it's going to monitor a directory on my machine called monitored, and it is going to descend recursively into all subdirectories underneath that, looking for a pattern which matches star.xls. So basically I'm looking for Excel spreadsheets. As I tab through this wizard, it's going to ask me a few questions like how do I want to do I want to do a maximum number of lines? Do I stop at the first 1,000 lines? Do I want to continue to the end of the file itself? Do I want to apply any override scoring? If I want to do slightly more loose matching within EntityStream, I can use this to define that. But essentially, I'm going to choose all the defaults. And what I have now is I've just set up my monitor. Now, at the moment, I've got no data in my EntityStream instance. Okay, so what I need to do is I need to now tell EntityStream to pick up a file or a series of files. Now, as I said to you earlier, I am listening to this directory, which is the data monitored directory. And if I look at my file system, what I've got on here is I've got some spreadsheets that were last updated at 9:58. Now, to emulate a user going and changing those files, I'm going to use the touch command on my Mac to change the date and the time of those files to now, which is at 10:24. Okay, so it's now going to go off, and it's told EntityStream, which is monitoring these directories, to go off and try to pick up these files and load them into the product and match the data together. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at how what we achieve at the end of it, which is a set of identities on people and also some other statistics around the files data that we found from that directory. So if I go back to my products, and if I refresh this a couple of times, what you'll see is that data is starting to arrive in the product. What it does is it picks those Excel spreadsheets up one by one and it processes them through. As part of the process, what you'll see is it will pick up a number of records, but also it'll identify the unique records. Now, the unique identification of those records or those people essentially is based upon a fuzzy matching algorithm, which you can configure within the modeling toolset within the product itself. So if you want to define how close or how wide those people should be matched together based upon similarities between names or nicknames, that kind of stuff, then you can define that within the product. Okay, but as a default, what I've done here is I've defined a model which I've downloaded from the marketplace, which is called the GDPR model, which is an example for us. So I'm going to refresh that again, and I think now we've got 3 sources. Those 3 sources represent my 3 different Excel spreadsheets. I can check the status of my files. They've been processed here. Okay, so it's picked all of those 3 files up, and I can go and look at the information, the statistics on that. Or if I want to, I can force the system to run that file through again for whatever reason. Maybe I go and do a purge in my data actions, which clears down the file, and maybe go and hit the run button again, and that will then reload that information for me. Okay, but normally I don't do that. Normally what I would do is if the file now changes, it will go through and it will identify the file has been changed, and it will send that back through EntityStream again. Now, it's identified here that we have 961 unique person records. It's saying that we've got 939 duplicates from 3 different sources, okay, and a total of 1,900 records that it's found within those spreadsheets. Now, you remember I didn't tell it anything about those spreadsheets. I never told it what columns it was dealing with, whether the columns were related to people, the address, the phone number. EntityStream tries to guess essentially when it sees data in a spreadsheet or a CSV file or an XML file, whether it's identity data that it's looking at. Okay, so then it will process that as a person, or if it sees a company name, it will process it as an entity. So I can now go in here and I could go and look at all these individual unique person records by clicking on the Analyze button here, or I could go and pick the religion-based information. So what we have is we've got a bunch of other widgets on our dashboard that say, okay, I've got a sensitivity around religion. I've set up a concept which says if you see religion-based information stored within the spreadsheet, and flag those records as religion sensitive. And the same thing over here with race. So if I see an indicator of race stored within my data, my ethnicity, then what I'll do is I'll flag those records up as as risk items, and I can go and do an analysis on those risk items and pull back all the records that have a religion attached to them. And if I want to, I can go through and I can look at the full details of those records. And you'll see here I've picked Kimball Bota, okay, and it has a religion attached to this record. And I've scrolled down here, I've opened this up, and you'll see that I've actually got two different records from two different files, my untitled spreadsheet and from my employees spreadsheet, that relate to the same person. Now these two records have been fuzzy matched together, okay, and that has shown us how basically we've got one row in here, one entity in here, one identity, and I can drill down to the individual person records from the different files that relate to that person. You will also see within this data, you'll also see a row reference. So if I want to go off and get this information from that spreadsheet at this location, I know that it's in row number 16 on sheet 1. And so therefore I can quickly go and find that data in my system and maybe make the changes to it. So I've done a quick analysis on religion. I can also do the same thing on race, but we saw that there was race information in the previous analysis as well. And I can do is here I can go and look at this concept called underage. Now, underage is slightly more complex. What it's not trying to do is just look for some indicator of race or religion. It's looking for someone that's under the age of 18 or around the age of 18. So if I do a quick analysis, you'll see here that these two records at the time are under the age of 18. And again, I could drill down to see how many different records I've got for these individuals stored in my organization. So I now have information for people that are younger than potentially I would like to have in my employee or my customer list. Now, the way that I've defined that rule is again within my model, and the rule that I've used is actually it's a JavaScript rule. In fact, an ECMA type rule script. What I'm doing here is I'm taking the full year of today and the full year of the actual record, and I'm saying, is it less than 18? If it is, it's tagged as underage. Now, clearly, I can make that 13, or I can make that 12, or I can make whatever I want, or I can make it over 101 if I'm interested in identifying records of people that may have deceased. And this is just something which I can do as a user of the product quite easily within the system to define those types of concept tags. And that's how this here has been defined. I can also quickly at the end here, I can do quick searches in EntityStream. So I can just go up and search for an individual. And again, I can bring back all the records that relate to that individual. And if I want to, I can go in here and I can edit that record internally here within the system. And finally, if I search for an individual such as Carol, Carol has got a couple of records in the system. And what we'll see here is that there's some similarity between these two records. And what it's allowing me to do here is it's saying it is 95% similar to the record you're seeing above. There are some differences, probably due to the phone number being different, as you see here, 22 at the end, 24 at the end here. What I can do is I can actually choose to make a decision at the point of searching here, at the point of looking at these records, whether I reject or approve this match. If I reject or approve this match, then the relationship between that employee spreadsheet there and the other records to do with Carol will be solidified, and therefore other people will see, a much more solid view. So you can collect people's knowledge about whether these are the same individuals or not. Okay, so very quickly, I've shown you today in EntityStream is how to monitor a set of directories or maybe a SharePoint directory, collect some data from Excel spreadsheets without having to define any metadata, and then be able to do some analysis on that data and go and do quick searches and be able to identify and understand a little bit more about the risks associated with the data stored in our organization. Thank you for watching. My name is Robert. I hope you've enjoyed the demonstration.